And hello, folks. Welcome. Greg Carrasco Show reaching out, as you know, at Greg Carrasco on social. Check out the Instagram, the Facebook, the LinkedIn, the Twitter, and all that good stuff. A ton of content, as they call it, for you to absorb. And appreciate any time you want to reach out by phone. Not now because we're on TV, but generally 905-467-0727. That's not some bizarre number, some hotline. That is right to the man's phone himself. He gives it out every day.
That's insane.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
but you've been doing it for 13 years on the radio show too, right?
And you guys have been taking the lead on that one, and my phone has been blowing up for the last couple of weeks since I started to give it away here on TV. So we might have to change that.
Yeah.
We might have to put the dealership phone number there. 905-827-1177 is the phone number of the place that is my second home. Oakville Nissan and Oakville Infiniti is where you can find me all throughout the week, except on Tuesdays, because at some point I need to do laundry. It won't do itself, and my kids certainly won't help me with that. So, but anyways, Oakville Nissan and Oakville Infiniti is where it's at. I'm super excited. This is our third week now, and the response has been phenomenal. Thank you. You guys are awesome. The people from all over Southern Ontario are coming down to the store and giving us their support. They're allowing us to do some needs analysis. They're allowing us to appraise your trades, to give you an idea what you should expect on your local dealers. Because if you go and try to buy a vehicle at another store and you're not happy with the trade-in value, or you are unsure as to whether it's a fair market value for the vehicle, what a lot of you guys are doing are coming down to see me. So then I will give you an actual market report, and I will buy the vehicle for that price no matter where you go. That is the promise. So then that's the only way that you can know whether you're getting a true market assessment on your trade-in. And on that basis, it puts you in a position of knowledge, which is always a position of power.
Coming up a little later on the show, an expert's advice, lack of trust in a dealership. I'm sure you felt that, or you know someone who has. We'll get to that and tackle that in just a bit. First, though, the phone calls from our radio show on AM 640 Global News Radio for the past 13 years. We've been doing that on Saturdays. We take the phone calls from there, play them back here, and we talk about them. Phone call number one for the day is right now.
I have a Hyundai. I've had it for almost 10 years now on your recommendation. And it's time for the old girl to be changed, and it's got 300,000 K on it. Now, what can I expect out of a hybrid? I usually keep my cars between 10 and 15 years. You hear all these moaning and groaning about the batteries. What's the average life of one of those things?
That was our buddy Klaus. That was a recent call. I remember.
Yeah, it was a recent call. And, folks, hybrid technology, I believe in that technology so wholeheartedly that I would actually buy one. When they first came out a few decades ago, it was really a gamble. You didn't know. We didn't know. I was in the industry and I had no idea. But you got to remember this, that the life of your vehicle is directly proportioned to the amount of money that you service that car. So, most vehicles today should last you between 15 and 20 years if you really do what you're supposed to be doing. And hybrids are no different. Hybrids are phenomenal vehicles. They're a fine compromise between what you want and what our car industry has been able to put together for you. The last hybrid that I drove was a Hyundai Ioniq, and as a test for the radio show, I decided to put the gas in it and keep on driving it until it stopped going. I had a 5-liter canister in the back in the trunk for just to put gas in it when this took place. Yep. But I was able to get out of that vehicle close to 1,200 kilometers.
Kidding.
Yeah, I put a video on my YouTube channel explaining everything that I did with that car. So, no, I wouldn't hesitate for a second in buying a hybrid vehicle. And as per the life of the battery, is so subjective. So make sure that you keep up with the maintenance at the dealership that sold you the vehicle. And on that basis, they should be able to predict how long you have. But on top of it, you should be able to have an extended warranty offer to you. So if you have a hybrid right now, you should get an extended warranty. I mean, there is so much technology in one of those cars that you need to protect yourself.
Your feeling's a little bit different when it comes to EV, when it comes to electrical vehicles, right?
Yeah, and for the most part, I feel differently towards the electric vehicles, and it's simple because of the grid. We don't have the infrastructure right now to support the charging stations that is required for you to drive an electric vehicle if you put in any more than 100 kilometers a day. I've tried it. I've tried it. Folks, there was, my daughter has been bugging me on this for years now. And I put an electric vehicle on the road for myself to see if I could actually adapt to the lifestyle. And I couldn't. I mean, I put anywhere between 6,000 to 8,000 kilometers a month in my vehicle. Is a lot. And I couldn't do it. There was no charger that was fast enough in order for me to be able to do this safely. Also, whenever you are given a range by the electric vehicle manufacturer that says you're going to get 350 kilometers, that is under perfect driving conditions. The moment that you roll the window down, you see the kilometer range going down. The moment that you turn the radio on, you see less kilometers that are available to you.
Minus 20
Yeah,
outside.
you turn the heater or the air conditioning. Anything that has to do with generating some sort of power within the electric vehicle is going to take a draw into the range. It will drive you batty. It did.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But saying that, I do believe that there are some alternatives right now, and hybrid is certainly one of them. I wouldn't hesitate in getting one.
Again, Global News Radio AM 640 to catch the radio show on social at Greg Carrasco. Call number 2 for the day's coming up right now.
You often ask people, why would you not go to a dealership to have your car serviced? Believe me, I understand the value in having the experts look at it, but I'll give you one answer to that. I have a friend who's a mechanic, and he told me how they're actually incentivized to upsell parts and service. Whenever somebody comes in for an oil change, whatever they can upsell, whether it's a rad flush, they don't get paid out in cash, but they actually have a credit program at their parts department where they can get parts towards their purchases. So that's one reason why someone might be a little bit skeptical about a dealership's intentions.
This is a battle you're gonna be fighting until you retire. The service dealership versus the corner guy, right?
Unfortunately, folks, whenever you have tens of thousands of something, you are bound to have some of them that are not so good. Now, what they're telling me here on this phone call is that, it's an unethical behavior. You should move away. Literally, no one should be incentivizing the technicians to sell you something that the vehicle doesn't need. But if you are under the delusion that that is any different at the local corner shop, then you really need to reassess your parameters, because you got to remember this. A dealership, for the purpose of this phone call, a brand new car dealership has a lot more to lose if anything like this gets exposed. Whereas a corner shop, it's a lot easier to close it down and reopen under different names or different companies. So I have to tell you this, folks. I know that everybody knows somebody that something bad has happened to them at a car dealership, but that is not the rule. Car dealerships today are probably the safest possible places that you can conduct business at. On top of that, there is a lot of implied service that is done to your vehicle for which you don't pay. So let me give you an example. Most car manufacturers, whenever you buy a brand new car, they will give you a factory warranty, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Let's take 5 years. So for 100,000 kilometers or 5 years, most car manufacturers will cover your powertrain and transmission. So that is your engine, transmission, driving axle, suspension, alternator, radiator, calipers, master cylinders. All those things, in most cases, should be covered under the major component warranty. Now, attached to those components, there are many other components. So on that basis, every time there is a recall, every time there is a service a bulletin, every time there is a campaign, all this service is done for you for free. Also, whenever you have a machine, it doesn't matter how reliable that machine is. You will always have parts that fall under the manufacturer defect that will be free of cost to you if you service the vehicle at your store. Here's where the problem starts. If you go to something other than the brand of the dealership that sold you the vehicle, you will never know if that part falls under the category of warranty work. And there is where a lot of people leave a lot of money on the table. You go under the premise that they're going to charge you less for an oil change because that's the actual what do you call that? The loss leader?
Yeah.
That's the loss leader that you'll find. But we've done analysis for our industry, and we've taken the average bill into what we charge and what ABC Motors will charge you for service, and it's almost 100% of the time you end up paying a little bit less at the dealership. Why? We have too much to lose, folks. That's not the car business of today.
You did mention warranties and campaigns and recalls. Do the corner guys have access to those campaigns?
They don't. They don't. I mean, this is the reason why we spend tens of thousands of dollars with machines and consoles that will give us the code, that will give us the actual bulletins, and this is only communicated to us. So on that basis, not only we have the highest or best trained technicians on that specific model, but we also have the best information for that specific vehicle, for that specific year, with that specific kilometers. And you may never know how many things are fixed for free on your vehicle every single time you come in for service.
Another call we get a lot on the radio shows about long-term financing and the do's and don'ts about that. Got Vince on the third call of the day right now.
Well, I want to put a down payment on a new 2019 minivan. It's that Dodge, that Caravan. And the other end is that spaceship, the Odyssey. You should have seen the dealers. They're nice guys, but they're offering me this 96 months financing. I'm petrified of that.
How many times we've heard that? Who wants to finance for 8 years?
Nobody wants to finance for 8 years, but the reality is this. The term doesn't mean anything. The term is only there to determine the longest possible day that you can take to pay that loan back. That's it. You see, that's the one thing that you don't have with your line of credit. And a lot of people fool themselves into thinking that they are going to have discipline to pay off that line of credit. The fact that you don't have the money to pay for the car in the first place tells you that you have no discipline in the first place. People shouldn't need a line of credit, but you got to remember this, folks, that back in the 60s and 70s, if you ever had a second mortgage, that was considered to be a social demotion, that you needed to second mortgage your house to pay for a roof, to pay for a kitchen, to pay for university. So people would look at you funny. But at some point, a brilliant marketing company came up with the idea, why don't we make this a club? Why don't we call this a line of credit? It's an exclusive club, a privilege for you to qualify for this. So they went from 15% penetrations on second mortgages to almost a 95% penetration of lines of credits. Guess what a line of credit is? It's a second mortgage on your house. And if you don't pay that back, guess what they hold as collateral? Your house. So on that basis alone, I far rather get a loan for the car dealership, take it for the longest possible terms that make sense, and pay it as quick as possible. Interest rates in Canada are paid on a declining balance. So for example, if you have a loan for 96 months and your overall interest cost is $4,000, you will only pay that amount of interest if you keep the loan for 96 months. Because every time you make an additional payment, every time you speed up, every time you make a double payment, you are cutting back the length of that amortization. Therefore, you only pay interest on the capital, not on the overall term. You see, gone are the days where you were paying the interest up front. Those loans used to be called front-end loaded. They're not anymore. You pay your interest on a declining balance. So take it for as long as you have to and pay it as quick as possible. That is the easiest and the smartest way to pay off a loan. Now, if you have 0%, never pay it off quicker. Use somebody else's money, keep it there. Keep it. Just keep it and drive the vehicle until it dies.
Using that 96 model, though, so that's 8 years. So if someone doesn't want to, I don't want to have an 8-year purchase and finance on a car, so they're like, I'd rather take a 4-year. Okay, then in 4 years from now, what are you going to do again? Take another 4 years.
That is if you trade the vehicle in, right? Which is what a lot of people do on leases. So they think, I don't want to have payments for 96 months.
Right.
All right, so you're going to take a lease for 4 years. At the end of those 4 years, what are you going to do? Is the car paid off? No, you're renting the car for 4 years.
You have to.
Now, remember, leasing is just renting. It's another word for renting. So in 4 years, you're going to have to rent again. How long do you rent again for?
4 years.
4 years. And then after that, what are you going to do? The same thing. So that's 12 years now. I can carry on with this for a long time. But you see, something that we forget, folks, look at this. We look at cars as status symbols. I'm going to give you an analogy with the Army. Right now, we have tanks that were built 20, 30, 40 years ago. We have planes that were built 20, 30 years ago. And they're still being used for, carrying personnel, for, patrolling the skies. But why do they last for so long?
Maintenance.
It's maintenance. There is not a single vehicle today, folks, in the marketplace that if you don't do the proper maintenance and you don't treat it as a piece of equipment, it wouldn't last you for 20 years. But you see, you got to remember this. marketing companies place on your insecurities. They make you feel bad about making a good choice. A good choice is for you to come in, service the vehicle when it's supposed to, and keep the vehicle until it dies. But you know how many people feel insecure about driving a 15-year-old car? Oh, no, man, my neighbor has something new. Maybe I should get that instead. And there is where the cycle goes. You know, marketing is based on insecurities. The more insecure you are, the more expensive the car that you buy. The more insecure you are, the shorter the cycle. Are you that way? Have the marketing companies won? Snap out of it, people. It doesn't have to be that way.
Lack of trust in dealerships, that's where we're going with experts' advice. Stick around. It's coming up here on the Carrasco Show. At Greg Carrasco to reach out on social as well. All right, welcome back. Greg Carrasco Show, at Greg Carrasco on social. And I should mention YouTube as well. I keep forgetting to put YouTube in that list of social that you're on, at Greg Carrasco. Great videos up there to watch anytime. And expert advice, that's the segment called Now, Pal. And this one, huge lack of trust in dealerships. How about that?
I will talk to you about lack of trust on dealerships, but I wanted to just point something else out. The number of people that have reached out to me over the last few years saying that they listen to the podcast is staggering. So you can find the unedited, the unedited version without commercials on iTunes. So if you want to listen to the actual radio show, there's hundreds and hundreds of hours of content there about the car industry, about us, about advice, and all that. Let's touch back on trust on car dealerships. Look at it from this perspective, folks. When a car dealership sets up shop in your community, this is what they're saying. I am putting my money into building an infrastructure that is going to house people within your community to work here so they can pay their bills, they can raise their children, they can actually buy their home, and also to service the vehicle that you purchased from us in order for you to start developing a reciprocal trust relationship with us. Now, some of these dealerships that you see in your communities have been there for 50, 60 years. In the case of Oakville Nissan, we have been there for, I believe it's over 35 years. So these are deeply ingrained businesses within your community. Who do you think that works in there? People from the community. Your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad. That's the people that work in car dealerships. And I can tell you this, I don't know a single dealership, folks, a single dealer principal that is not under the constant scrutiny of the manufacturer to make sure that the customers are well taken care of, and also that is not enforcing down the line of the chain of command that customers are looked after properly. I don't know a single one. Maybe someone in your family at some point, maybe a friend, had a terrible experience. And I can tell you this, that I am not innocent of this. Whenever you are serving thousands of people on a yearly basis and tens of thousands of people over decades, you are bound to have people that you don't get along with. But that doesn't mean that that is a rule. It's more the exception. Look, I'm a pretty nice guy. But there are some people that I just don't get along with. And on that basis, that person is going to tell another person and so on. It creates an idea. Car dealerships are not what they used to be. It has never been safer to buy a vehicle than it is today. Now, we have regulatory bodies within our industry like the TADA that we know, our friend Todd from there. We also have OMVIC, the Ontario Motor Vehicle Industry Council, that is there for one reason and one reason alone, to keep it a fair playing game. They make it fair for you, they make it fair for the dealership, and they're also the watchdog to see if there is any wrongdoing by anyone. For example, curbsiders. OMVIC is all over these guys. They're charging people. They're sending them to jail because they're selling you vehicles that are not part of the criteria. They're evading taxes, and they're making our job more difficult. Now, so when you have that many regulatory bodies looking at an industry, you have to trust the system at one point. And I can tell you because I'm in it. Every single day, I have close to 100 people that work with me, not for me, with me. And they have only one common goal, to make sure that our industry, that our store is viable to serve you, and hopefully we make a little money in the process. Profit is not the enemy, folks. That is not the enemy. The enemy is the lack of transparency. The enemy is your inability to make an educated decision when you come into a dealership because of pressure. That is not good. But our industry has changed so dramatically that right now I can tell you, I can look at you. You can come into my store and pick anyone that works for me, and I feel just as good as them looking after you. If a family member comes and asks me, Greg, who should I talk to at your company? I say, just pick. Why? Because most of the people that I have working for me, they have never worked in the car industry before. So we train them from the ground up. Our industry is changing, and it's about time that the actual reputation of car dealerships starts to change.
Finding happiness. That is where we're going on Switching Gears. That is our next segment after a short break here at Greg Carrasco on social anytime. Greg Carrasco Show, lots more of it on the way. Stick around. right, welcome back. Greg Carrasco Show at Greg Carrasco on social media, be it Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, or YouTube. Check it out. Lots to be had there. And the radio show from Global News Radio, AM 640. You can get that on podcasts and iTunes as well. Hours and hours, if not hundreds of hours of listening there as well. But want to wrap it up with switching gears. That's our final segment every show. And this one is a broad one, pal. Finding happiness.
Finding happiness. Wow. You know, why would I want to tackle this on a TV show about cars? You probably ask yourself. You're not the only one. You know, every day that I come to the show, I try to come up with an idea that I want to share with you at the end of each show, for you to have something to chew on, for you to have something to think about. And this is all I can tell you today on a, almost 7:30 on a Sunday morning, is that comparison is the beginning of all unhappiness. You know, nothing is good or bad until you compare it to something. I'm not tall or short unless I compare myself to John. Or your car is not new or old unless you compare it to your neighbors. So the only thing I can tell you today, folks, is the following. Don't. If you are going to compare yourself or something that you have to anything, it has to be against yourself so you can measure the improvement. You know, if you look at your child, if you look at any one of your kids, I'm sure that if you look at them long enough, you can find some imperfection. The question is whether you want to. There is a lot to be said about being content. I don't think that happiness is an actual ultimate goal. I think that happiness is a side effect of you being grateful about what you've got. And on that basis, I implore you to do one thing. Stop comparing your life. Stop comparing your paycheck. Stop comparing your car. Stop comparing your job and your career to something else. Especially, stop comparing against social media. Folks, there is only one place that you can find me right now, actually two, Oakville Nissan and Oakville Infinity. We're trying to do something a little different. And I am there all the time. I have no life, so if you need to come and see me, there is where you go. Right, Johnny?
You bet. Done for another week. You want to reach out, simple, at Greg Carrasco on social media. All kinds of social media. Take to it and enjoy it and ruminate on it. We'll catch you next time here on The Carrasco Show.